With your host, Andrew Donaldson. This is Heard Tell.
Welcome back to Heard Tell. I'm Andrew Donaldson. Thank you so much for giving us the most precious thing you have, your time, and that's why we do what we do here. We turn down the noise of the news cycle, try to talk about things that matter, try not to talk about things that don't matter, and try our best to discern the times, and we do that a couple different ways. One is talking to knowledgeable guests. The other is trying to provide a little bit of a wider perspective than some other folks might have. Now, we do this a couple different ways. You know, we talk to people overseas. We try to have a diversity in our guest list. We also have a diversity in our story list. There's a very interesting thing that's happened the last couple of days, and part of the problem with it is a perspective issue. Yes, it's also a personal accountability issue, but I want to address it this way. Something really interesting happened on social media over the weekend. If you're on Twitter, which I am, way too much, self-admittedly, you may have heard about the Elon Musk closing the deal. Now, we've been covering this since it all started back in the spring. It's been up and down, but now it's done. And Elon Musk now owns Twitter, which he paid way too much for and is going to have some problems with, but we'll cover that at another time. An interesting phenomenon happened. A whole bunch of folks on Twitter who are very concerned about things like shadow bans and censorship, and you've heard all these buzzwords if you've been around social media for more than about 10 seconds, especially if you do politics. They started doing something kind of collectively. It's funny how things get going virally. They started retweeting their tweets before that may have gotten them in trouble, or did get them in trouble, or did get them put in what we call Twitter timeout, or get their accounts taken down or suspended briefly. Well, let's just stop right there for a second. You know, this is something toddlers and teenagers do. You say something that you know you shouldn't say, but you say it anyway to see if you get away with it. That's basically what they're doing. Like, oh, well, it's free speech. Yeah, we'll debate free speech another time. Look, you click the consent button. It's a private platform, so no, you don't have free speech, but we'll hash that out some other time. These folks thought the most important part of this story, and when they saw the news of what was going on with a major media platform, and by the way, if you got a social media account, you are a medium platform, even if it's only for your friends and family. You might want to keep that in mind. They thought the best way to react to that news was to push the limits of what they could do, or re-up something they got in trouble for before and go, yay, I can do this thing I knew I shouldn't have done the first time because I'm doing it again just to see if I can get away with it. That sounds like a teenager or a toddler, an adolescent thing to do. But they praised themselves for this, and they were happy about it. What does that tell us about folks? Now, we could talk about immaturity and things like that, but I think it's more of a perception problem. What do I mean by that? Well, social media has a way of tunnel visioning us. Somebody used the metaphor, and I don't know who it is, but this is not mine, so I'd like to credit somebody else, of silos, like the old missile silos in the Cold War. You're all in your own little missile silos, and you don't really know what's going on other than waiting for the call to launch your missile at somebody. That kind of works. More importantly, though, we tunnel vision. We can select, we can use social media like a buffet and only get the information we want. We can curate our follows, and we can curate what we see and hear, and only eat what we want to eat, and only see what we want to see, and only hear what we want to hear. The problem with tunnel vision when it comes to social media is a platform that can give you a global perspective, and you can talk to anybody in the world at any time, all of a sudden becomes the telescope looking through the wrong end, seeing everything distortedly, and only seeing what you want to see. Here's a couple examples of perspective I talked to. So while this was all going on over the weekend, over in Seoul at a Halloween party, over 150 people were killed in a crush. Now, if 150 people died in a crush in America, it'd be the lead story for 4 weeks or more. Just over the last 24 hours or so, as I sit and record this, a pedestrian bridge in India collapsed. 132 people at this time died. There may be more because there was 400 people on this pedestrian bridge when it collapsed. We know about the war in Ukraine, the high casualties, the civilian casualties, the war crimes, the brutal price people are paying there. Even in our own country, there's so many stories that go misreported. We just re-upped a few weeks ago our story from last year from our very good friend Molly McCluskey, who went out on the reservations and was trying to do a story on these missing persons. And she couldn't get anybody. She details this. Go listen to the episode. It's amazing. She details trying to sell this story and then trying to just get it published and then finally trying to give away this feature story about these missing persons out on the reservations. You know when all of a sudden they wanted it? After Gabby Petito happened. Now all of a sudden missing persons are hot and they got a backlash. And now they wanted to talk about missing persons of other kinds other than who Gabby Petito was because now people wanted to pay attention to it. Perspective. This applies to our politics too. Yes, we're in the sprint now to finish off the midterm, so it's going to be hot and heavy. In fact, we're going to have multiple of our election experts on the next couple of programs because we want to cover it thoroughly from a couple different angles. That's why we have different people on to cover it, though. Even those things, you need a little bit of perspective. Went and voted over the weekend. We have early voting here, and I've got some appointments and things, so I went and voted over the weekend. I was really struck by something when I went to vote. On my ballot, almost 3/4 of the ballot was not those top line things that we talk about on the show or other shows or even the political media widely. 3/4 of my ballot was judges. And then there was some local races, especially a county commissioner race, because the way it's set up where I live, you vote for 3 at a time at an at-large bid. So there was races that don't get covered. And I did what I usually do. I did a little bit of prep work, so I knew who I was going to vote for. But it struck me, I wonder how many people go to their voting booth and have no idea who all these judges and county commissioners and school board members and things like that even are. Because we tunnel vision. We focus on the president. We focus on Senate races. We focus on House races. And we should. There's nothing wrong with that. Or we focus on the Queen's death or on a celebrity, whatever's viral at the moment. And then these people locally that have great effect on our lives, judges who have literally the power of life and death in your hands. Do we pay as much attention to them? Do we pay attention to death and tragedy in other parts of the world? Or should we just keep re-upping the worst tweet we could think of that got us in trouble and re-up it again to make sure everybody knows that we said it and maybe we'll get away with it this time? There's immaturity there. There's childishness there. Mostly, though, there's just a lack of perspective. There's way more important things going on than what you do on social media. But you can change your social media to make it really about the important things. I try and sometimes fail to do that, but I do try. And I think we'd have a lot better social media, and we'd have a lot better news media, which flows from social media more and more these days, if we all did a little bit more of that. Get a wider perspective. Don't tunnel vision. Pay attention to what's going on in the whole world. Don't be afraid of outside opinion to shape your perspective a little bit. Let's all try to do a little bit better going forward, especially as we finish off this midterm and immediately go into a presidential cycle and into the 2023 year of our Lord. Because we're almost done with the year of our Lord 2022. You don't want to finish it with regrets, folks. More Herd Tell right after this.